Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us back here at the Up North house where we are experiencing that rain we were expecting for days. You can see our yard projects are coming together, getting settled in and rained in here. And my little sprouts, I've begun to plant some seeds and they're starting to come out up there, which is very exciting. And we've been out this morning to gather supplies for my Up North house sewing area because pretty soon we're going to be needing to sew some things for the kitchen and dining room where we're going to be working today. So John already has his bucket. He's going to be working on some cleaning and I'm going to be working on priming first. The cleaning we're going to be working on, there's a lot to clean. But the first cleaning we're going to work on is going to be all around the edges of doors, that kind of stuff. This is the basement door. You can see just some general cleaning. And then we're trying to get it kind of clean and ready for sanding on any of the woodwork that we need to do, as well as the floor. So we're going to do our first attempt at kind of washing the floor now that we've got the bulk of the dusty parts done, the first dusty parts done. And we think that we need to come in here and wet. We've tried to dry scrape. We're ready to try to wet and pry up some more of this cardboard and papers that are stuck. I'll be doing the priming while John is working on the floors and that part. And I'm gonna try to be priming and painting in this room as well as our dining room. The ceiling is in great shape in here. So I'll be doing the ceiling as well as the walls. We've patched and sanded everywhere. And that is what we're gonna be working on today. So the primer we have is just white. It's Kills brand. That's what I'll be using on the video. You'll see me doing that. And we're gonna do at least one coat. It is soggy outside, so we'll have to give it some time between coats and then we'll see where we get from there. Alrighty, coat 1 of the primer is done. I will work on coat 2 as soon as that dries. No need to show that, it's not as dramatic, but you can see it is at least becoming more uniform. Very exciting. I'll be going back in these little sections with the brush here in a moment. And all the areas like these window frames up here and around there, I have to do with the brush. So I'll be working on that next. John has been cleaning the first layer of cleaning on the woodwork. So he started on the baseboard or the wainscoting down here, and he did the door, the first scrub of the door using the scrub brush and Dawn dish soap spray and wash just to get the first layer off. And then he's going to go back with more heavy duty stuff, but it is already much improved. You can see here is the old like patina layers of the different treatments for the door over time. The doors are darker than the woodwork. They're like a redder stained darker thing. So we're gonna get the woodwork clean and then see where we have to sand down to blend and restain it because there's some, water damage and things that we have to take care of as well. But the floor is looking better. It's working to wet it and kind of let that soak into those big areas so we don't have to waste our sandpaper on those big cardboard areas. when we go to resand it. So I can already tell I love the color of the floor. It's gonna be great when we get it sanded and restained and looking wonderful. But that's what's happening. I'll show you next what John's doing while I continue to paint more white on white, and we'll see where we go after that. All right, here's the close-up of what John's doing. He has one more layer of paper on this section. And he's got this little brush that we got in the grocery store dishes department, and you can put your, detergent in there if you wanted to. He's not doing that right now, but it has a scraper on here as well and a pretty stiff bristle. So he's using that to kind of gently scrape and scrub, and that's the process. It's on and on, but he's making good progress. And you can see now that the floor is wet, the areas that have dark staining, the water damage on there. So we'll be working on that at the sanding stage. But this is able to show us what we got going on underneath, and it's looking so much better already. All right, first coat of the dining room is done, ceiling and walls. The ceiling will definitely have a second coat, everything will. And the second coat on the ceiling will go in the opposite direction, so that kind of gets some of that coverage better. I wanted to point out, we're using the cheapest of cheap rollers here from our local discount store. I think just so it's 99 cents for this roller, which is great. And this little extension thing is actually just a broom handle. So if you are not interested in purchasing a fancy extendo roller thing, it might be nice to just use a broom handle if you don't know that trick already. So John is doing great in here. The floor is amazing. You can definitely tell it's wet right here, but you can tell where the bulk of debris was in the floor during the flooded time. But wow, what a difference. I love it so much. And then you can also see over here on this wall where our stove's gonna go. At one point there was a washer dryer, if you remember from previous or beginning videos. And the drain, it was in that little hole there, and there's water damage. A lot of the water damage and the black stuff that was on there at the beginning is starting to come off as we just clean it. Which is good to see because it could have been a lot worse. So that's good. It was just gook with gook stuck to it from moisture. So that is good. It is looking great. We are going to keep on keeping on, and I'll check in with you in a little while. We are going to continue painting and scrubbing in here. I'll show you later on what it looks like, because now I'm going to do second coat in here. But it's not going to be very much different for you guys on screen, so I'll keep doing that. And then I'll go around and do all that trim and show you what it looks like when it's all said and done. All right, I took about 3 coats of coverage. There's still a few spots on the primer that I'm gonna go back and touch up. You can't hardly see, there it is on camera, right around the middle. There's a few stains still coming through. We use Stain Blocker Kills, but there were some stains. So we're gonna do one more coat in certain sections. Looks great though. The floors are wonderful. John painstakingly scraped and cleaned. This is the dining room floor. You can see how amazing that looks now, all clean and clear. Kitchen floor, same thing, looking good. Got 3 coats in here, especially on that back wall. There is a patch in the middle that I'm still working on building up. But this wall, which was my main concern, is looking great. It's actually ready for color after today, so that will be basically finished before the stove gets in place. So floor in here looks great. It's dry, it's looking good, and we can see everything, which is wonderful. We got our sander rented from the local rental store. Super simple setup here. This one's a little different than what I'm used to. This one, some of you may have used it, I haven't. This one's an orbital sander for the floor. So you have 4 discs, they're Velcroed on back here instead of a belt. I've used the belt before. The belt is in one direction and you have to be careful, you know, to go in line with the wood grains and things. But this one's orbital and it has 4 pads, so you can kind of go any which way, which should be better for this floor. There's not a lot of like layers left on the floor. If you can see kind of the sheen across there. So it shouldn't take too much sanding to really get to the wood and see what we can do. But we'll see what we get to. So I'm gonna be working on sanding with the floor sander. John's gonna be working on sanding the wainscoting, getting up. You can see kind of, I believe, the color change at the bottom to the top where just the, you know, grime layer over decades and decades. So we're gonna try to even all that out. There's a section over on this wall. There's still some of that. This is where stoves previous were located, but then this wall was inside that cabinet. So you can see the kind of natural color of the wood there, what that looks like. So we'll see what we can get to on the walls. But that's what we're gonna be working on. You're gonna see us sanding and we'll let you know how that's going as we're doing it. All right, there's the first passes. We were kind of testing this area. About a 4 foot out from the wall, there'll be sort of a mat under the stove, so it'll be hidden anyway. So if I really mess it up, it's a great place to start. We were testing, we have 3 different kinds of sandpaper. We had bought the 80 before. We were thinking we could get a lot of that grime off, and then we thought, oh, let's start with 150. So you saw me changing out the pads. I don't think the 150 was enough to start, so we'll probably finish with that a little bit later. But so we're starting out now officially with 80 grit everywhere. And just as an FYI, we bought our sandpaper separately at Harbor Freight because it was about half as much as the rental facility would sell you sand pads. So always ask. I mean, saving money is great. Waste not, want not. But so we're going to start with 80 grit on this, and I'll show you with just one general pass of the 80 grit. You can see, I think you can see, it still does have some bits of sheen in there. The floor has some waves in it, of course. So I'm gonna go back over it a few times and then keep on trucking, but I think I'm happy with the 80 grit. I'm gonna try to get all those shiny parts off. That's my goal today. So that's what I'll work on, the very edges and around these little dips and divots. I'm gonna leave this area because of the way the orbital sander is, it'll get stuck in there, which again, I've never used the orbital one. I've always had the belt one. So we're gonna do this section over here by hand with the hand sander, same as we're using on the walls. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep on doing it and I will show you that in fast motion. All right, here is pass 1 with the orbital sander. I'm not sure, the jury's out for me on which one I like better. I know the belt sander can be a little scary because you kind of can't leave it still. It needs to keep moving in a very consistent motion, but this orbital sander, it's hard for me to kind of let it orbit. It wants to kind of move around circular, which is what it's designed to do. But it's just probably me being old and not learning new tricks very well. But you can see first pass with the 80 grit, there are still patches of shine, which I need to go back over again. So I'll do that now. With the orbital sander, you can go any direction, cross grain with grain. That is hard for me, but I am gonna try to go across a little more this time. I'm gonna start on that side of the room and go back this way so that I can start with new pads on that side and kind of even out that 80 grit, and then we'll switch to a lighter grit when it's time, if I can get some of the shine off. What are your experiences? Tell me in the comments, have you had experiences with the orbital versus the belt sander? At this point, I think I'm trying to lean towards the belt sander, scary as it is. I don't know, it seems very quick, and not quick, but it's very obvious and consistent. You go in a strip and it's done. You go in this strip and it's done, and it's very clean and concise, I guess I should say, where this one wants to jump around and I'm having a hard time letting it. So tell me what you think in the comments. What have your experiences been with this type of thing? And I'm gonna keep on sanding while you comment. All right, my jury is no longer out. It's several days later, and we used the orbital sander. I actually went over this with 7 passes and graduated the sandpaper up to the finer grit. It was very smooth. However, it did not get us down below the stain surface. This is apparently bird's eye maple. You can see this beautiful, potentially beautiful section of flooring, the bird's eye maple in here. It's beautiful, very hard wood. But what has happened in the past is somebody had a drum sander or a belt sander on here, and there's multiple kind of gouges with the sander in there that we uncovered once we took some of the top layers of the finish off. But we weren't able to get it all out of there. So you can see over here along the front of the cabinetry, there's a line where a drum sander had come along and stopped and turned there. And we revealed that once we were able to take the top layers of finish off. And then we thought, well, they were able to disguise that because you could not see it before. They were able to disguise it with stain and finishing. So we decided to stain it, which we have stained it, but that also did not change the effect of the high-low. We have not polyurethane or sealed it because we decided we weren't happy with the way it was gonna be. We don't mind all the dark spots in the age, but the sand marks, somehow that's different for me. I don't wanna see somebody's sander marks in here. The floor has, you can see here, about 1 inch worth of depth. So we've got plenty of floor left in there. So we've got plenty of room to sand down. So under advice from locals, we have decided to sand it with another type of floor sander, which is the drum sander, or some people might say a belt sander. I think they don't have the regular belt sander I'm used to. They had this drum sander, which we're gonna try. This is the dining room, what it's done. And here too, you can see the marks going across the wood grain. I think it's the application of the polyurethane. And it's actually, it looks almost in here like somebody may have taken just a mop to applicate as an applicator. You can see the marks across. So we need to get that out. It wasn't coming out with the orbital sander. And that is, well, that's my new experience with that sander. It's for lightweight jobs. This is not a lightweight job, so we're gonna try something different. So here we go. All right, this is the first few passes, much much better. We have to go around and do the edging, of course, with the hand sanders. You can see here an example of those previous spaces. I can't quite get that deep. I mean, I could, but if we can get that out with the hand sander, that'd be fine. This is very rough. I think you can see how rough it is for this first pass. I think we're using 60 grit to get below, but the wood looks so much better. You can see I'm finally getting past these. I'm guessing that's varnish application marks. You can see it a little better in this light here. So definitely getting below the surface way better than I was before. And I'm keeping this one in a straight line in here. This is gonna be so beautiful. I'm so excited. We're just gonna put polyurethane when we get it all finished. So it'll have just wood grains on there. And then John's gonna be coming around and doing the edges. This section here, to avoid that effect, this sander has I don't know if you have one like this, but most of the ones I've used have had this. It's an on-off switch, just turns on the motor. And then this lever drops the sanding drum, which is here on the front there. It drops the drum and engages it with the surface. So you can kind of feather this in and out of position as you approach those edges and make it a smoother transition to the edge. And I may be doing it differently, but what I like to do is I like to actually get to the edge, feather myself to a stop, and then turn it off, and then rock it back so that it's not spinning in the same position while I go back and make another pass. And you can see with this kind of sander, I can only get that far from the wall. So then I have to go back in the other direction for that other section. But it's a little time consuming. I think it's worth it. It's definitely doing the trick for in here. So I'm gonna keep doing that, and I'll show you the end result. And then in this kitchen, we may do things differently. I mean, my jury's out. Again, here we go. We've been advised that we should go at a 45-degree angle across the room to get the most, off of the surface, because there's so many dips and valleys, but I'm still just so chicken. So we'll see. I really think that these gouges like this came into place because if you remember from a couple of videos ago, we actually supported this floor, and it's very solid now when you walk on it. But for decades before this, it was not solid. It was like a trampoline in here. So if you take a big heavy sander like that, it's gonna just hop along and gouge. So I may try it right here, straight on the wood grain, and see what happens. Because again, if I mess it up, this whole area up to about the outline of my hand here will be covered with a stove mat. So this is my good experimental area right here. So we're gonna try that. I'll keep on keeping on, and I will update you when we get to this room. All right, here is the final look for this video. This floor is getting its final pass now. Much smoother, much better, down to wood grain, ready for a coat of sealant. We do have a couple little spots here to work out with the hand sander. John's doing the hand sander as usual. He does all the hard stuff. So I really appreciate that, John. And then this is the floor. I think I'm getting ready to do my 5th pass in here. Much, much, much better. Most of the gouges and burns are out. We do have a few places we're still working on. This little streak here, it still has a teeny bit of varnish. But for the most part, all those little sander marks and gouges are smoothed. Way better than it was. You can see the line that was over here is mostly gone now. John's doing a couple more passes by hand over here. This floor is way closer to what I was hoping it would be. Plenty of old dark marks to show, plenty of all of the age, but not the sander marks. We got the finish off of it finally. So thank you for following along as we basically refinished the floor twice. Moral of the story, go with the sander you know. We're gonna cut the video here. It's been a long one. It has been a long week, let's be real. Some weeks are like that. So we are gonna keep on keeping on here, and we'll catch you up on what everything is looking like in the next video here at the Up North house.